Let me start with a familiar image. It's peak summer afternoon in an Indian city. The sun is harsh, almost blinding. The road is shimmering and you can see the heat rising off the asphalt. You check your phone, the temperature reads 41 degrees. But right below that, there's another number, almost like an afterthought. Air quality index, which reads poor. It's not winter, neither is it the smog season, but your city is still polluted. And somewhere in that same heat, a construction worker wipes the sweat off his face, a delivery rider pulls the mask closer to his mouth, and a child walks home from school breathing in air that is both hot and toxic. And this is the story that we don't tell enough. Welcome back to another episode of Mission Planet A. This is your host Rupa and we are at episode 18 of season 2, and today we tell you that air pollution doesn't disappear in summers. Air pollution is not just a winter problem anymore. The air quality stories that we see from Delhi during December months is not the only time you should be worrying about air quality. And to add to that, heat is not just about discomfort. The two are now colliding and the result is a slow, invisible crisis. For years, we've been taught to think of air pollution as a seasonal problem. Winter arrives, the smog settles and the headlines follow. And then summer arrives, the skies look clearer and then we just assume that the problem has passed. But that assumption is really outdated. Because this is what science tells us, that heat is changing the chemistry of our air. A multi-city study across India found that air pollution and heat interact in ways that actually increase health risks together and not separately. And here is the part that flips the narrative. During summers, pollution doesn't just magically disappear, it only changes form. In fact, it changes into a form that we don't often hear or talk about. Ozone. No, and I'm not talking about the ozone layer that is high above us, but ground level ozone, which is extremely dangerous. In Indian cities, ozone levels regularly cross 100 micrograms per cubic meter, well above the World Health Organization safety guidelines of 60. And what drives ozone? Heat. The process is something like this. Think of the air as a kitchen that gets super busy during the summers. All year around, cities release ingredients into the air. Fumes from cars, smoke from factories, tiny invisible particles floating around. In winter, these ingredients just sit there, almost like leftovers that don't go anywhere. But in summer, something changes. The sun turns up the heat, almost like switching on a stove. So these ingredients start mixing, reacting, and forming something completely new. But what comes out of this is something that we don't see around, like smoke, because that is ground level ozone. So when the sky looks clear, it doesn't mean that the air is clear. It only means that the air is more chemically busy. Strong sunlight provides the energy needed to drive these reactions. That is why researchers say that pollution in India doesn't disappear in summers. It only changes form. That is why ozone concentrations tend to peak during summer afternoons, especially in urban areas where the emissions are high. A recent study found that major cities like Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai and Bengaluru all recorded high levels of ozone concentrations during summer periods. So when the sky looks clear, the air is still toxic. It's not just about ozone. Heat waves are now directly linked to worsening air quality. Hot air tends to trap the pollutants closer to the ground, especially in denser areas. So this only means that the pollutants do not disperse, but they in fact linger around. Now think what this means for the human body. Heat alone is already stressful. It dehydrates you, it strains your heart, and it makes every physical activity extremely strenuous. And now add polluted air to that equation. Your lungs are working harder, your oxygen intake is compromised, and your cardiovascular system is under double pressure. This combination significantly increases the risk of respiratory illnesses, heart diseases, and even premature death. A major study found that heat-related mortality becomes 1.5 times higher when pollution levels are at their worst. And here's the thing, you don't need extreme conditions for this to happen. Moderately high heat coupled with moderate pollution is strong enough to cause severe health risks, especially for the vulnerable population. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Not everyone experiences heat equally. Only about 10% of Indian urban households have access to air conditioning, which means some people cannot escape neither the heat nor the pollution. And here is where we need to think about the idea of cooling poverty in India. And it's not about who has an AC and who doesn't have an AC. It's about not having any ways to stay cool at all. Your house traps the heat, your job exposes you to the heat, and your commute also exposes you to both heat and polluted air. So in the same city, we see two different realities. One where a certain set of people can regulate their environment, and on the other hand, we have people who have to endure the heat and the polluted air. Now think about outdoor workers, construction laborers, delivery riders, and street vendors. They are exposed to both heat and polluted air throughout the day. Sometimes they don't even have basic amenities like shade or drinking water. And there are documented cases when workers choose not to drink water during their working hours because they don't have access to toilets nearby. Now add polluted air to this equation. Every breath becomes a risk. At this point, it's not just only about climate change, it's a labor crisis. And it's showing up in the economy too. Extreme heat led to losses of about 5.4% of India's GDP in 2021, roughly $1.59 billion. That's from lost working hours, reduced productivity, crop damage, and energy demand spikes. Cooling alone now accounts for 40 to 50% of peak electricity demand in summer evenings. So we enter a dangerous loop. More heat means more cooling, and that is directly linked to more energy usage, which means more emissions are released, which ultimately means more heat again. And this loop is just about to get worse because study shows us that heat waves in India are becoming more intense and prolonged, which means more heat, more pollution, and more health risks. All of it happening together at the same time. If there's one thing that we need to take away from this, is that air pollution is not just a winter problem anymore. Now, where do the big guns and the authorities come in? We need to take a look at that too. Let's start at the source. India has the National Clean Air Program, which aims to reduce PM 2.5 and PM 10 levels by up to 40% in over 130 cities. And there has been some progress. Several cities have reported reductions by up to 20 to 30% in particulate matter since 2017, according to government data. But here is the gap. Most of these calculations are only based on winter particulate matter and not summer level ozone. To address heat-related pollution, cities need to target NOx and VOC emissions which create ozone. Because if you reduce the ingredients, you can reduce what the sun can cook. Now this is where pollution and heat interact more clearly. Urban design. Cities that trap heat also trap pollution. Research shows that urban heat island effect can raise temperatures by 2 to 4 degrees Celsius, especially in densely populated cities. And now that extra heat is directly linked to accelerated ozone formation. So what can authorities do? Increase the urban green cover, protect and restore water bodies, use cool roofs and reflective materials. In fact, India Cooling Action Plan aims to reduce cooling demand by 20 to 25% through better design and passive cooling. Cities like Ahmedabad and Hyderabad have implemented the Cool Roof program, especially in low-income households, that reduces temperature by at least 2 to 5 degrees Celsius. Now that's not just comfort, that's reduced heat exposure and better health conditions. And authorities need to think more and think differently about cooling. Because if people can't escape the heat, their exposure to polluted air also increases. But there's a silver lining in all of this. India already has a head start. The Ahmedabad Heat Action Plan, one of the first in South Asia, led to a significant reduction in health-related mortality after implementation. So the solution exists, but that requires a shift from thinking air pollution as a winter emergency to treating heat and air as a combined full year-round crisis. Because the truth is, we cannot clean the air without cooling the city, and we cannot cool the city without rethinking how it's built, governed, and powered. The challenge is scale. Taking what works from one city and implementing it across hundreds. It's a year-round crisis where the form only changes with the season. In winter, it's visible smog, but in summer, it's invisible toxicity. And now, heat is at the center of this transformation. So the next time you step out on a hot day and think that the air is clean, remember that clear skies don't mean clean air. Because in India today, pollution doesn't disappear during summers, it only evolves. And now the question is not even how bad the air is, it's about who has the ability to escape it. And I leave you with that thought. This is the end of episode 18 of Mission Planet A. If you've liked this episode, then do consider subscribing to us on YouTube, and you can listen to a completely different set of content on Instagram as well. So keep subscribing to Mission Planet A, and this is your host Rupa signing off. Until I meet you in another episode.